going? And this hangout is on the air. Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Search Geeks Speak. And today, it's the ever-moving, the ever-changing, the ever-elusive Google Raiders Guide hangout, which only got popped around about 12 times. But we're here. We made it. Let's see. We got Bill Slosky over here. Yes. Go Fish Digital. Of course, Doc Sheldon. Hello, Doc. Good day.
Hi, guys.
Frank, I have no idea even where you work these days. Where do you work, Frank? What's your, your handle, your tag? Where do you?
I'm actually doing consulting work, for my own company, but I might actually be doing site migration for Toys R Us.
Holy crap! Really?
Yeah.
That could be a troll, huh?
Yeah, it's like a 6-month gig.
Yeah, no kidding. And of course, we've got Jen, the SCM Post. Yes, the person who wrote the book on this one. I don't know, I think you had 2 posts that were about 10, 12,000 words apiece, no?
And you read every single word, right?
Like oh, yeah. It took a few seatings. Left it open for a day or two. That time was open for a while, that's for sure. Yeah, that's it. You have to keep going back to that one. And of course, Terry Van Horne, SEO Pros, SEO Dojo, and elsewhere. What's happening? And Doc's in and out. We don't know what he's doing. All right, so I don't know. Start with some myth busting. No names mentioned, but one of our favorite people out there had a video, I think, or the other day that was. He goes by the name Josh. I'll just leave the rest there. But he called it the leaked Google Raiders Guide, which, well, it hasn't been leaked in years. They just kind of post them out there now, so I'm not really sure. So it's definitely not a leaked thing anymore. I guess right off the top, Jen, I think one of the interesting things, and Terry, I believe it was that guy that asked Max was been talking about that, as far as the Raiders are now pretty much on smartphones now, right?
Yeah, they actually made that change in the November one that we saw, where all of a sudden most of the rating tasks were being done on mobile, which is a pretty big deal because it has, they've been pushing this mobile-friendly thing for so long, and now it's a new issue where we have to make sure that we're, serving up the best we can be for mobile. It's not enough just to make sure our sites look pretty and are functional. Now we have to look at a whole bunch of other things to do with it so that the Raiders think they're awesome.
Well, that's it, and again, if Google is using this as part of their quality testing and everything else, and they're leaning this part, it's not so subtle hint. I was like, okay, yeah. If you're not thinking mobile, you better be. And that's obviously Google's pushing for that for a while now. Everything from speed to AMP, mobile, So, yeah, I thought that was one of my favorite parts is that you have to look at things in a mobile world now. Oh, Terry's shaking his head. He still refuses. He's hanging on to that desktop. Terry's not going to.
Look, I think you should use the data in your search console. If you go to search analytics, that tells you a lot more about mobile than just, mobile is half, because it's not. It's, that's, for a lot of sites, it's not. Like, it's just not. I haven't seen a site yet that even close to 50%. That's my small set, but I think it really depends on your niche. And what you're
I agree. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater as far as it goes.
I just don't. I think most of those mobile searches are directions and price checks. People in the store checking prices in other stores, which is useless to us. Like, just be there. That's all you can do. But that's it.
I'm not sure I agree with that. Like, me personally, I use my phone for all kinds of things because I'm not tied to my desktop all the time. Like, if I'm sitting on the couch watching TV and I want to look something up, I'm not going to go and run into my desktop and do it. I'm going to do it on my phone. And I actually buy a lot of stuff using my phone and not using a desktop, and I know a lot of people do.
You're a small percentage, I bet. Like, you're familiar with this stuff. How many people would ask for directions to a car lot, but they'd never buy the car online?
My mom doesn't even have a desktop, and she buys everything on either her phone or her tablet. every last thing. And if the site doesn't work, I know she leaves, and then she moans to me about, why, how come this site's not, how come I can't use this site on my tablet or my phone?
Bottom line is you can't take 50%. You got to look at your own site and see what's happening there. And make
for sure.
The traffic.
Oh, yeah. And you never even know that, because as Amber brought up the other day, if you're not really targeting mobile, you can't really look at the analytics and say, well, I've got low mobile numbers, so I don't need to worry about it. Well, you know, it's chicken and egg kind of thing, because if you're not targeting mobile properly, well, that's maybe why you don't know. I think that's a low price.
The question is, how are they counting the audio searches when you get the response as an audio response?
Yeah.
How are they counting?
You got to be curious, but you know, well, what are you saying? How work in the query data, like say Search Console or something like that? If somebody's doing an actual voice search, how are they? You know, what's the attribution on that? Is that showing up? Curious. Don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, my sister and brother-in-law, they're not, you know, real techies, but like you were saying before, Jen, they'll be sitting in front of the TV, and some actor will come up and they'll want to know how old he is or what, you know, movies they've done, and or they see a product and they want, you know, is it available? They get a lot of their answers in audio format, and I'm really curious as to who they're, you know, do they assign that as a search to someone, and if so, how is it being tracked, and how to track that in analytics?
I think it depends on the device you're using, because they actually don't have mobile. They have smartphone, tablet, etc. It's not broke down mobile per se.
Well, Google Analytics breaks it down to mobile and tablet too, so you can see what people are doing on tablet versus mobile.
Yeah, but if they're giving you an audio response, how, you know, what are they doing? Okay, we scraped this information and turned it into audio format from this website.
I use, most of my voice searches actually don't speak back to me. They just give me my results when I'm thinking about it. I'm looking for something. I'm not usually asking, you know, who starred in whatever movie or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to the Raiders Guide. So we can sit here. We'll do another show and debate the validities of mobile later.
Okay.
Sorry. So we got that covered. All right, so definitely mobile, and if you're not paying attention, you probably should, because apparently Google is. All right, so right off the top, let's get the easy stuff out of the way, Jen. So we've got main content, secondary content. What's so you got your MC, you got your SC, and how are they defining that?
So EAT, which a lot of people talk about, is expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And this is the kind of stuff that's going to affect if you have a site that is dealing with, say, medical or banking information. Basically anything that's going to affect your money in your life is basically what it breaks down to. It's a little more broader than your money or your life, but they want to see sites that have people that know what they're talking about. They don't want it to be a $5 article written by someone in some other country that doesn't speak English and is obviously not really knowing what they're talking about. So they're looking for stuff that's, you know, written by experts, or being an expert doesn't mean you have to have a degree. Being an expert means you've been doing something for a long, long time, and you're considered an expert in, you know, that little niche market. Secondary content, SC, that's basically the other stuff on your page. Probably the easiest way of talking about that is if it's a recipe site, if you have nutrition information, or you have the ability to save it into a recipe box. What did I miss?
So yeah, your main content on the pages they're saying to the Raiders is essentially, you know, the article itself or the piece of content itself. Yeah. I think secondary or supplementary, or however you want to call that stuff, that's supporting information, I suppose.
Yeah, and actually something we saw in this one is they've put a lot less emphasis on that supplementary content, because they're putting so much emphasis on mobile now that if you're on a mobile device, you're often not seeing that supplementary content anymore. You're seeing that, you know, the top of the logo, you're seeing maybe a small navigation, and you're seeing the article, and you're not seeing all the extra stuff that you see on desktop. So secondary or supplementary content has actually been not removed, but kind of not as important as it has been in the previous ones.
Prominent, yeah.
I'd agree.
Their definition is it contributes to a good user experience on the page, but does not directly help the page achieve its purpose.
Yes, it's basically it's kind of the stuff that you see on a page that makes a site go from, oh, this is okay, to, oh, wow, this is really cool to see this stuff here. Again, on mobile, you're not seeing it as much.
They also talked about reputation research and reputation information. So I guess that's playing into the EAT as well.
Yeah,
look for reviews, references, recommendations by excerpts, news articles, and other credible information created or written by individuals about that website.
Yeah, basically they're wanting to make sure that a site doesn't have a low reputation. Like, it's not a site where people have been, scamming people. So they want you to check to make sure it's legitimate. It doesn't have a reputation for ripping people off. It doesn't have a reputation for a lot of bad information, that kind of thing.
In main content, does that that's just the displayed content, correct? Nothing in divs.
They define it as any part of the they define it, Terry, as any part of the page that directly helps the page achieve its purpose.
So that can include stuff that's in tabs as well, for sure.
In the last Raiders guide, they basically said that has to be really good content for it to be considered main content.
Yeah.
So that still applies, correct?
Yeah, they want to see the best content possible that you can give them. So, but what we have seen with the mobile thing is that people are having to either reduce the content or make it a little more accessible. Wikipedia is a really good example for a site that's using, expanded content, so that you can, if this huge, ginormous Wikipedia page, they're giving you all the information, but they're having it kind of in expandable sections, so you can go and if you just want to see information about this particular aspect of the page, you can go there without having to scroll.
Right.
Like, can be a real big pain in the butt on mobile for sites that don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah, they in the section, I think 3.1, whatever it is, most important factors to consider when selecting overall page quality rating is main content quality and amount. So that could be something. Website information about who's responsible for the website, website reputation, and then EAT. So those are their four main areas they're seemingly telling these guys as far as how to rate the page quality.
Yeah.
So they would probably look at the About page for a website.
Yeah, they want to see, that's one of the things they've said, you want to find out a little bit more about the author. And this is something that, for user-generated sites, it has come up because people are contributing. So let's use, say, Moz for an example, because they have user-contributed content, and they actually give you a bio on the person. But if you look at Search Engine Watch, for example, they've removed all their bios, so you have no context of who the writer is. You have no context of who they work for, so you can get any biased information about it. You don't know. You just have no idea who that person is, other than they have literally a byline, and that's it. So that's definitely something that raters are looking at. They want raters to be able to find out more about the author, what their background is, if they have expertise, all that kind of thing. So it's a shame that a lot of sites are doing away with bios, because that's something that's hurting as far as the quality guidelines go.
Yeah, what's the point in posting there if they give you nothing in return? Because
right. Well, yeah.
Well, I think
even contact information, Terry, especially in your money and your life kind of stuff. We talk a lot about, is there contact details? Is there a contact page that has, phone numbers, places to get a hold of them? The more sensitive, again, your money or your life, the more sensitive the type of page, the more they want to see this kind of stuff. About us pages, customer service information, contact information.
Being totally transparent really helps, I bet.
Well, yeah,
right.
it's definitely a user experience thing too. In terms of search quality, it's not just what's the value to the author to contribute if they don't even get anything but a two-syllable byline, but it's also how do I determine whether or not this author has any any wherewithal to speak about this topic. You know?
Right.
So from the search quality standpoint, I think it's a major factor when you start doing away with that sort of information. It really detracts from the value of the page if nobody can evaluate.
And same with comments are considered, examples of supplementary content. And comments are also really good because people, well, especially if the site has is posting both positive and negative article or comments, you can really get a sense of how authoritative the author is, because people will post comments saying this person has no idea what they're talking about, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Or you see, wow, this is a really good point, I didn't think about it this way, I'm glad you posted this. So it's the recent trend of doing away with comments, I think, is really not so hot too, because we have seen them promote community and promote all kinds of stuff within, just even in our search community as well. But
well, even an e-commerce site, I would think, wouldn't reviews be something in there as well, right? We're still talking comments, so we're talking a lot about informational type pages, but let's consider an e-commerce site again. Where is the what sort of where does that come from? Like, is there customer reviews of the site? Is there
customer reviews for sure?
Customer supports numbers and contact places, and what's on the contact page, what's on the About Us page, who is the company that owns it, what do we know about them?
Yeah, all that thing. And how if you look at, all the sites that, do profiles on that company as well, that can really help. It doesn't have to be like a Better Business Bureau, but there's like lots of little niche markets out there where they talk about, oh, this site's good, this site's not so good, these are my experiences with different sites in the industry. And so it definitely applies for e-commerce as well.
Yeah, also, Terry, they're talking about copied maiden content. We do not consider legitimately licensed or syndicated content to be copied. The word copied refers to the practice of scraping content or copying content from other non-affiliated websites without adding any original content or value to the users.
Yeah, see, that one, you get websites that are going out and getting quality content from different sources to, provide an overall view of something, whether it's medical and they're pulling stuff from various pharmaceutical places to give a description of what the particular product is, and then maybe a university report where you're taking part of that content. That's the difficult part, because there are people creating websites that are using content from different places to give a more detailed,
right. Legitimate uses of linked data from sites like the FDA that tell you about types of problems there might be with certain drugs and how they interact with other drugs. And if you have a site that talks about drugs, having that information on your page can be really helpful.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
And the use, if you're attributing it to the right resource, the use is free, it's open data.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's difficult sometimes. Some people get a little carried away with the aggregation model, and they just turn it into nothing but a collection, and they're not adding any value to it. So there's still value to me if I'm looking for information on a product or a service, and I can find that collection rather than having to go spend an hour on Google digging it up from those 17 sources. That does have value, even though there's nothing on the page except the collection. And I think that's one of the reasons that human quality raters are an important aspect, because how do you do something like that with an algorithm? You would discount the value of that page because it offers nothing additional. And whereas a human rater can see that, yeah, there's value there. Somebody spent some time in putting this collection together, and that saves time and offers different perspective. To me, there's definitely value in something like that, potential value, I should say.
I hope so. I'm working on a site that's doing some of that.
I think also Google added rel canonical, so that can help,
Sure.
see who the original content maker is, and it'll help prevent some of the duplicate content. I think rel canonical is great if it's used properly. It's not always used correctly.
Well, I would even say rarely.
There's a major.
Can you actually, let's say you have 5 pieces of information that come from 5 different sources. Can you wrap each of them in a canonical to where the source was? I've never seen that.
No.
No, I think you'd have to just link attribute those kind of things.
Yeah.
Source.
Yeah, exactly.
Section 9, they look at each on the page or the website. Apparently, can be both. Depending on the page, the EAT, which is again expertise, authoritativeness, and trust, may be based on the page alone, maybe based on the website, or maybe both based on both the page and the website. So I think I think that's worth noting. It's not always just the page that you're looking at.
Yeah, they want the raters to kind of have a broader look at the site overall when it comes to determining how authoritative a site may be, because it can be hard to tell just from a single article. Like maybe it was one article they're looking at that happens to be really, really awesome, or it happens to be one that's really, really crappy, and they just can't tell from the article itself how good or how not good a site is. So they're wanting the raters to kind of have an overall look at the site when they're determining authoritativeness.
Yeah, one of the examples they actually give is YouTube. They said this is the case for article websites or websites like YouTube, which have user-generated content. EAT for pages on these websites drastically based on the EAT of the creator of the content on the page. So yeah, user-generated stuff again. You know what I mean? You could have one page that's got great EAT and the next one doesn't. So,
yeah, that's kind of interesting
because
example a lot of sites, they don't really care about, vetting any of their content, and they'll just let anything out there, whereas other sites, they have kind of a stringent editorial policy where articles have to go through, a different process, and, they have someone review it for accuracy before that user-generated content ever sees the light of day, so to speak.
So, what else? Q&A pages, forums, ratings for forum and Q&A pages can be challenging. The most important aspect of the EAT is participants of the discussion can be difficult to judge. Keep in mind the main content in a forum or Q&A page includes both the question as well as the answer. Rate Q&A and forum pages from the point of view as a user who visits the page rather than a participant involved in the discussion.
That's actually something for forums. That's one thing with forums that it's kind of interesting because so many forums block profile views. So you actually have to register for an account on the forum to actually view anyone's profile. But in perspective of the rater guidelines, because you can't look at that person's profile normally when you're logged out, which raters would be, they can't judge how authoritative any particular poster is on those threads. So if there's someone that posts a really long detailed answer, but they can't look and see the person's background or what's on their profile, or easily look and see what their other posts are, they can't give a very good authoritative, rating based on that because they can't see anything more about that person because of the way the forums are set up.
Yeah, they also talk a lot actually about user intent. So I'm not even sure if there's much that an SEO takes from that, but it's certainly one thing I guess they're looking at is Google returning the results for the intent of the query properly. So they're almost analyzing Google's abilities at that point, not the website itself. Queries with multiple meanings. So they have a dominant interpretation, common interpretation, and minor interpretation.
Yeah, it's a Apple versus Apple kind of thing. What are people looking for?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's pretty obvious what they're looking for, but other times, hey, I actually could be looking for some kind of apple that I ate that I want to find out what kind of brand it was or something. So there's definitely, it's kind of interesting because people could be searching literally for, an apple you eat, and they're going to get all these apple results. And is that really serving the user? well, and that's why we see all those disambiguation boxes now in the search results that they added, a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, to help kind of lead people to the other meanings if they're looking for something else.
Yeah, it's funny because they use Apple the computer company, Apple the fruit, Apple the person's name. Gotta say, I've never heard of anyone named Apple before, but okay.
Oh, a celebrity has their daughter named Apple.
Oh God. And then apparently there's a city in Oklahoma named Apple. What's that?
Castro's kid's named Apple.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was quite the brouhaha of everyone going, what? When that happened.
Their mother and father are often seen lined up in front of the Apple store when new things are released.
Intent of a query can change over time. So somebody searching for an iPhone in 2007 probably was looking for an iPhone 1, whereas in 2014 it'd be an iPhone 6. So, and I think that, that becomes the temporal stuff, I guess, Terry. You know what I mean? That's almost that where freshness starts to play into things as queries change in intent over time.
I have one of those that's a real pain. One of my terms is office space quotes, and all you get is stuff from LMB or the database for movies. Ridiculous. With one actual office space provider in the results on the first page. But that's because
interestingly enough,
that's dominated.
Sorry, go ahead. So those are changing over time?
Yeah, and the number of queries for it has changed drastically in the last 6 months. So
Bill, in the user intent thing, Bill, I saw something kind of interesting because we've always talked about, informational, transactional, navigational queries, classifications. Right. They have a new one in here now that I guess based on all this mobile stuff. They call it a no query, which that's what we consider informational. They have a do query, which is some sort of action, so it's transactional, I guess.
Holy meat.
They have a website query, which is website, so that would be our navigational. But they have a new one now called the visit in person query. So this is a new classification that's completely based on mobile experience.
Well, they've kind of changed that. They used to call it, I think, just regular local, but I can see where in other countries people might get a little bit confused about what that actually means. So all they're referring to, that one is just specifically local searches. So you're searching for a restaurant, you're searching for a store that sells something locally. So it's kind of an odd way for them to word it, but I can see why they did it.
Yeah, let's see, the query whether may seem like a broad information query, but most mobile users have a fairly simple informational need to find the current or upcoming temperature and a chance of local weather events such as rain or snow. So again, leaning back onto the mobile.
Well, they have your position there, so it's got context, right?
Yeah.
You're on mobile.
And generally, if people are searching for weather some other place, they're going to type in, weather Los Angeles, weather Cancun. They're not going to do weather and then be like, well, why isn't Google serving me the weather in Cancun when I'm sitting here in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm sure there are people that get upset by that.
And then you also have, Terry, device action queries, which is also somewhat new. Was that in the last fall, or?
Yes, it was. Basically, they're talking about. They're basically what they added it. I think the last round they did, and it's basically referring to things you do on your phone that interact with an app, or interact with the phone itself. Yeah. So setting a timer.
Well, they have call someone examples, which is call mom's phone or place a call to Anna Jones. Or, okay, Google, could you please call my mom? Yeah. The infamous, okay, Google. Love that. You can send a message. So send a text to John Smith.
In regards to the local stuff, I found out something the other day that's pretty cool. If you put what is my IP into Google, it'll actually tell you your IP.
I use that a lot, actually, because I'm often using IPs from different countries to see search results. And so I use that because it's kind of hard to find an IP that'll work for Google because it's secure.
Proxies for the.
I define IPs. That's how I learn. Which must mean that they know every IP when they're looking at that during the search. Must be.
Oh, yeah.
Which could be how they're determining location and why people in one location get another location, because that's where the ISP is.
Yeah. What's kind of interesting is me here, I'm in the States right now, but my phone, because it goes through a Canadian carrier, I still get Canadian results, or I will be actually standing in a store wanting to check inventory at their other location for something, and then I get routed through Canada, and it gives me the, oh, we see you're in Canada, so here's our Canadian site. And I'm like, no, I want the American site. And there's actually a few sites out there that won't actually give me the US site when I'm standing in their store.
Yeah.
Kind of a pain.
So it's not geolocated per se, it's actually looking at the IP of your provider.
Yeah, and just however, even though I'm roaming on a US network, my network in Canada will still be like, maha, you're still in Canada. So we want all your information. I'm sure they're tracking me.
And I have a similar issue here, Jen, because I'm in Mexico, but I'm very close to the border. Sometimes I will pick up a U.S. signal. Sometimes I'll be on a Mexican signal, and I can actually be on a site and click from the home page to an internal page and actually suddenly switch languages.
Yeah, I actually have seen that as well, because I'm so close to the U.S. border that I'll sometimes pick up a signal over in Port Angeles, and it's the exact same thing.
But yeah, Terry, so all this device action queries, again, goes back to this whole Google Assistant kind of approach that they're doing now. You know what I mean? So again, things are going beyond the traditional web, because they've got, queries like navigate to Central Park, which is going to bring up something separate depending on the device. Where play songs from the White Album. There's another one they've got for meetings, schedule a meeting for 9 a.m. or set an alarm for 6 a.m., etc., etc. So yeah, it's a whole device-centric, mobile, obviously, device-centric type of query that you wouldn't traditionally think is a query.
They added that to their calendar as well. Basically has an assistant built into it now.
Now, are they sorting data by region, and obviously they must do it by country? For example, different parts of America call soda or pop or soft drink type thing. That type of sort of filtering of information based on where you are. If you ask for a biscuit in Australia or England, you mean a cookie. Whereas a biscuit over here is something you put gravy on.
Yeah.
They must, because I'm sure we'd hear more cases of people freaking out. Well, not freaking out, but being like, oh my God, Google, you're so dumb because you gave me this, when here it means so-and-so, right? And we have some weird stuff in Canada, too, and I have not noticed that.
Biscuit could be a hockey puck, too.
There you go. Obviously, if you're in Canada.
What was that, Bill? You were going somewhere?
I was going to say the word football has the same type of thing going on with it. In the U.S., it means one thing. In Europe, it means something else. It means something completely different. Based upon where you're performing the query is, Google might do some type of predictive algorithm to decide data center your query goes to and send you a result from.
So that reminds me, actually, if you do a search on google.com for football, you see American football. If you go and do the same search on google.co.uk, you're going to see all UK football, like what we call here soccer. So you can do a little test yourself and find that kind of stuff.
Now, do they provide different results depending on the browser? Like if you happen to have English US browser versus an English UK browser? would they be able to do the recognition with your English come over here? Or are they doing it through geographic?
I think it's through geographic.
That would be a start flight.
Language, but that's language, not.
Okay. But if I'm just thinking in terms of if you have the browser that recognizes that it's the U.S. English, and you go somewhere else and you make the query, they should at least consider that as a qualifying factor.
Well, even when I go and do a search on google.co.uk for football, even in Chrome, where I'm sure I have it set up for U.S. English, I'm seeing all soccer.
Yeah.
Well, another one of the examples they give, somewhat related here, is turmeric. And so location comes into play, meaning are you looking for a spice? But if you're in Sunnyvale, California, per se, there's a restaurant called that. So depending on location, they're saying, what is a quality result in the sense could be based upon that. Somebody, if I'm doing it from where I'm sitting at on my phone in Canada, I'm probably looking to find out more about the spice turmeric. Whereas in apparently Sunnyvale, California, there's a restaurant there, so it's going to look at that geolocation to decide what the user's intent might be. I think location's still going to play into it.
Yeah, I'm in California right now, and I'm seeing all for the spice. I don't see it all for the restaurant. Although every time I do that Raiders guideline, I think about that restaurant.
If you do a search, that was the thing that got me of that SMX keynote where he was doing all the searches on the phone, and he used something similar. I don't think it was that restaurant, but it was another one that had the other possibility. And as soon as he did one previous restaurant search and then asked the question, it got it to that. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a few of those actually. Yeah, you're right. That it was actually learning as you went through a search task. I think he did that with the mountain as well in that SMX presentation. He asked the name, what is whatever the name of the mountain was. It came back with nothing. Then he asked for mountains in a certain cylinder or whatever, and then he went back and asked, and it came up with it. So it's used to adapt to the search task as well.
That was voice, correct?
Yes,
correct.
It was.
Yeah.
Voice search, which seems to use context more than mobile or desktop. Correct or no?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Are we going? Is that something that's coming around the corner for all types of search? Because it would make sense. Because it provides a better user experience if they're using that contextual. Even though if you tried that in Europe, I think they'd end up bitching and moaning about privacy issues.
Oh,
Yeah, for sure in Europe.
that's a given.
Yeah, there's a lot about intent and context, I think, that they're talking about in this thing for sure. So the no-click searching, Bill, Orion we're in the age of Orion, aren't we? They call them special content result blocks.
I'm not sure how much Orion actually pulled content or context, what it came up with for the Google Squared or for the extended snippets.
I think just always, I don't know, for me it was the start down that road of the, no-click searching, meaning, well, again, they call them special content result blocks. So that's, you ask for a recipe, it shows you the recipe. Another one they show here is calories in a banana. So
it's also
basically they're just showing.
It's also what he was talking about earlier about the IP thing. So it's all those kind of things as well that are coming up in the search results. Tracking information, for example, if you are expecting a package, that'll show up.
Device action result blocks. Go to Amazon.com and it pulls, So again, I think a lot of these are voice even. Some are typed, but I think they apply to the voice stuff.
Yeah, see,
It's
that's,
interesting. Yeah, so many of the pictures in the mobile.
the move is going to be more and more to an audio search parameter. So, how do we work on that, and what are the criteria for them pulling that information? You'd like them to say, where can I get my shoes? My Nikes, latest Nikes, and I want to be the person, the company that says, oh, you can go to Frank's shoe store right here.
David, have you noticed in patents from Google, they tend to involve the mobile version of Google as opposed to
Yeah, for sure. Like the move, it keeps moving more and more in that direction. I think they're getting, desktops slowly becoming so much less of a focus with them.
Kind of related. When they say 50% mobile, is that worldwide or North America?
I bet you it's worldwide. It would have to be.
Yeah, that skews the results too, right?
Oh, well, yeah. In fact, they even mentioned that because there are so many developing nations that are almost exclusively mobile, they know that skews it. And as I recall, I don't remember where I saw, but just like in the last week, somebody did a breakdown of an estimate of how much of that was North America, Europe, Africa, South America.
Right.
But it was estimated.
As well.
Huh?
I saw that article as well where they were breaking it down, and they're talking about how in Africa where they can't afford laptops or desktops, they've got a phone that they can engage with the internet. Same thing in Asia. Predominantly, you go to China, I think that number's got to be, 80% of the people don't have computers, but they've got a phone that they can do searches on.
Right.
Well, and if they have computers, there's no infrastructure for internet.
Yeah. But as I recall, maybe you recall better, Frank, as I recall, the North American number was still something like 52%.
There's more mobile in the U.S. I know than there is desktop. I think it was last year. I think they released a thing that said there was more mobile than desktop traffic or searches done in 10 countries, including the U.S.
Yeah. I still.
You know what I mean? It's the type of searches that are being done. Now that we have this mobile ability, they don't break it down to like e-commerce search. Well, they may have actually, I think, but you know what I mean? For specific sort of research or library type questions aren't done as much. They want quick, fast answers. They're looking for locations of suggestions for restaurants. They're looking for directions from one address to another, and those are all considered searches. So I mean that's why that number's high now.
Well, it would be interesting to see them by query type, but I don't know that they're ever going to share that.
The other thing.
Well, then there's also you also got to look at your revenues too. Like Terry and I were looking at this the other day, and again, it's going to depend on your market and everything, but I've got an aftermarket auto parts aftermarket stuff, right? And they're doing, I don't know, about $1 million a month in revenues. And so Terry and I were looking at it, and sure, the mobile and the desktop were almost even. You know what I mean? It was like 51% desktop, 49 whatever. But when we looked at the revenues from those two streams, the desktop was far higher as far as when people are actually purchasing from the site. Yeah, so again, you can't just look at those mobile numbers. You also got to cross-reference your revenue data and see where people are buying from, and which where they're just looking for information.
Like I said, there's, in my opinion, mobile is a lot about discovery and less about conversion. That's why I think you can't just look and say 50% and make decisions based on that alone. You might as well throw stuff against the wall because it's just.
Well, it's important to maintain that 50% in context. It's 50% of searches and discoveries. The start of your funnel. So.
Hey, I'm not discounting. I'm just saying, in the end, you can't even attribute that sale to the discovery, probably. in a lot of cases.
Yeah, very true.
Go
ahead.
Oh, go ahead, man. I was going another direction, so finish that thought pattern.
I think it's indicative, though. You know, it's obvious from this last version that they are really strengthening their focus on mobile. You know, desktop has become an afterthought. I don't think they're discounting it, and I don't think they ever will discount it because businesses are never going to operate 100% on mobile. Okay.
And don't forget that rankings are done based on the desktop version of the site. It's not done based on the mobile part of the site, which is pretty significant. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Well, and aside from the quality raters, I think that's fair. It should be based on the full version of the site. You know, full version being your desktop versus what is probably a truncated version for the mobile. So I think it makes sense that it stays that way. But I think the important takeaway here is the focus of Google on mobile primarily in terms of determining the quality of the page.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, myself included, we missed the boat by paying so much attention to the webmaster guidelines and almost no attention to the quality rating guidelines. To me, this is as important. You know, they mesh very nicely, but it really lets you see the types of things that they're specifically looking at to rate the quality of a page. I think that, you know, too many people have missed the boat by not paying more attention to data guidelines over the years, and now I think it's even more important.
Yeah, in regards to what Jen said about ranking being for desktop, go into your GSC, Google Search Console, look at the search analytics, very eye-opening, because you see big discrepancies. You may have a number 1 on desktop and be like 8 on the mobile search. So it does provide a lot of low-hanging fruit, especially for someone like Dave mentioned, the auto parts company. They may have some low-hanging fruit there to work with.
And you know, and you can't discount apps too. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, are buying through an app directly, and they might do some research on a site with their phone. But if they're using the app, you know, if that website has an app, a lot of times that purchase is coming through the app, not through the site. Jen, ads. I was just going through one of your posts here.
So yeah, they're again looking for. They want to make sure that the ads aren't too distracting to the content. They want to see that you're not serving a whole bunch of big ads at the top of the page and having to scroll down to actually see the content on the page. But I mean, this is nothing new. This is, you know, business as usual for most SEOs.
Yeah. Well, Panda had that in there. The top heavy ads thing that was one of the at least algos they talked about, Terry. So yeah, that's certainly in line with everything else we've seen. So
yeah. Basically, don't annoy your visitors too much with ads. Like, they're not saying don't have ads at all, but they shouldn't be totally obtrusive to the user experience.
If you, just out of, to add to that, when I was on Stone Temple's site, and they have a interview with a Googler, and at no time does he say ads. He says content above the fold. Says nothing about ads.
Well, he says they want to see the content above the fold. They don't want to see ads.
He did machine learning on Panda, and he doesn't mention ads at all. Talks only about content above the fold.
Yeah,
that's
ads and that kind of thing.
With when they talk about advertisements, they don't use the word ads. They use the word content. Content means ad.
All right, so ads are considered content, just not always useful content.
Right.
Oh, pop-ups, Jen. I think you noted something there too.
Sorry, pop-ups? Yeah,
I mean, they're... You said Google mentions many typical things, including pop-ups, large quantity of ads, and so on and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that they're wanting the user experience to be good. They also talk a lot about misleading ads, and there's something that's actually coming up with manual actions now in Search Console called social engineering content detected, and those are kind of like the download buttons that you go to download a ebook or something, and there's like 18 different download buttons on the page, and it's like Russian roulette for which one is actually the real one and which one is something that's going to install all kinds of nastiness on your site.
Yeah.
So they're also looking
I get
for
that a
things
lot when
that are misleading.
I get that a lot when I'm looking for images on like free image, stock image sites and stuff like that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like, okay, which one am I actually supposed to get here?
And it's often so obvious that they're very deliberately misleading. That just pisses me off.
And that's why I'm actually pretty happy that Google started doing this social engineering thing, even though the name of the manual action is like the worst thing in the world, because everyone's like, what does this mean? What is this for? But actually, they announced either this week or last week that Chrome is now going to be blocking sites that are using these types of, tricky download buttons and stuff. So hopefully it'll clean up a bit, especially for people that are using Chrome or getting to those sites from the search results, because there's going to be this big red block that basically it's very difficult to get to the page after you see one of these things, which I like personally, because those, Russian roulette with ads drives me crazy.
You were talking earlier, so I pulled up one of my clients. I do this seasonal PPC for Brunners, this Christmas place, and so over the last, since October of last year, their desktop traffic was only 46% versus mobile and tablet, and they're huge. They do $6-7 million in sales during the Christmas season. So that's interesting that level of traffic's coming. Though, like Terry had said, it seems like the desktop is a better, they buy more per person, per visitor.
Because people want to get a big picture of something. They don't want one the size of a postage stamp, I'm sorry.
But you also need to think about the fact that if someone is doing research on their mobile phone, if I go to one site on my mobile phone and it's crap and I can't use it and I'm, everything's falling off the page, I'm going to go to the competitor site. And when it's time for me to actually buy it, I'm more likely to go to that competitor site because I've been there, they had the information I needed, I found everything I needed to know, and I will go to that competitor site because they had a better mobile experience, even if I'm buying it on a desktop.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no. The funnel, optimizing for where people are in the funnel is really important, and far too many companies don't think of that in creating content to get their attention at the beginning of the funnel so that when they do come down to the sales process, they enjoy the process in the beginning. Yeah, all of that's different things. It may not be SEO, but it's part of the online marketing procedure that,
That's one of the problems with having a mobile and desktop site. If they get a URL off the mobile site, is it going to be the same on desktop?
If you've done your SEO right and done your site setup right, it will work.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't think of making two sites when I can make one. Never.
Well, if it's responsive, it's going to work regardless, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just use a responsive design and test it in your mobile to make sure you're getting what you want.
Yeah, I agree. I can't see any sense in ever going other than responsive.
Yeah, but even a responsive isn't always a good user experience. It just means it renders in the phone. Doesn't,
Yeah, but that goes beyond. I'm just saying I would never look for two sites, a mobile site and a static site. That to me, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, okay, I see.
I was agreeing with you, Terry. I know. Shocking, huh?
Yeah, I know. That is shocking.
I like to throw you off center once in a while.
Makes me want to reconsider what I just said.
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe you were too hasty, eh?
Just kidding.
Dan, what about AMP pages? Because they've got it set up now where you know that's an independent. That's not a page that gets rendered through response. It's actually an AMP page.
Yeah, so AMP pages have the rel canonical thing, so it's attributed back and forth between the AMP and the other page. And I think it's really important that sites are going to have to get on board with AMP because we've seen Google has been very vocal in the fact they're going to expand to different search results, I guess you'd say. And it's not going to be just the news sites and the blogs. It's going to eventually expand well beyond that. And I've been telling people, if your site's based on WordPress, there's just a plugin, and you just go and upload the plugin, turn it on, and you'll probably have a few little nitpicky things that are related to how your template was set up originally. But it's such an easy way to get AMP pages. And people think, oh, it's just for news sites, except that when they initially launched that in the news thing, that has blogs as well. So you're missing out on the opportunity to get your content front and center if you aren't AMP. And then they released yesterday or the day before that it's going to be showing up in news now for Google News. But it's just a matter of time before it's going to start showing up for image searches or just all different kinds of content. And I think it's going to be a mistake if you're not on board with it. It doesn't mean that Google was always going to show that AMP page in the search results if you have a regular page, but it's the option there because if they're surfacing content first that's AMP, you want to be there. You don't want your competitors to take that spot instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, they tried to throw us off the trail, I don't know if it was Mueller or who it was. I'm sure Jen knows because she reports this stuff. But yes, don't look at patents and papers. Look at the Raiders Guide. Remember that one? Was that John Mueller? Who was it? He's trying to throw us off the trail there, buddy.
No, it wasn't.
But also,
Yeah, I think we even had a discussion somewhere.
It was Gary.
Oh, it was Gary. Okay. Yeah.
No.
All right.
I would say if you're not using the Raiders Guide,
No, it was.
yeah, how Google works.
It was Paul Hard who said that.
Oh, okay. All right.
He
Nice
said,
try, Paul.
"You can look at my present, but instead of looking at the patents I've written, look at the Raiders Guide." And I said, I learned a lot from the patents during your presentation. I knew exactly why you were saying the things you were saying about things like stop words and fully met needs. And at one point, he stops and calls meets needs queries informational, as if he's thinks better about them as if they are informational. I do too.
Yeah.
When you call a query a fully met needs query, I'm thinking, why don't you just call it a navigational query? Because that's how you're treating it. That's how you want people to treat it. Someone says ESPN or types ESPN in their search box, they want to go to espn.go.com or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I don't know the proper domain. So it's easier just to type ESPN in the search box.
I think you got it as an SEO because part of our job is future proofing. You have to be looking, or at least taking patents into consideration, because they show you the problems they're having and what they may want to fix in the future. So
well, I think it's just two. I think it's two different animals, right? What a Raiders Guide, you're learning how Google looks at search quality, whereas patents and papers are giving us an idea how some of the nuts and bolts are fitting in together. I think it's not really black. It's two different animals for me. So
I
I'm still doing both.
All three, personally.
The patent that was granted last week that said they might look at the rear-facing camera facial expression on a person doing search to see how satisfied they are with the result that they're looking at. It's like, yeah, it's a little bit privacy invasive.
I think it was Evan the other day when you guys were doing your Bogus Hangout was saying, though, sometimes you could be laughing at something because it's bad. You know, just because I'm reading Larry Kim's post or something and I'm like laughing doesn't mean I'm happy with this page. You know, so I could be laughing for a completely different reason. What was the Groucho Marx quote we had the other day, boys? From the moment I picked up your book till the moment I put it down, I convulse with laughter. Someday I intend on reading it. All right, well, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to let everyone get out of here. Anyways, so I guess what again, I think I advise anybody to read through these things. It really doesn't hurt anything, and it gets your brain thinking. So the Raiders Guide's still something to read, folks. And I guess, I don't know, for me, you guys can state what you think. For me, I think the biggest thing is such a lean on mobile. I think that's what I really took away the most from it.
Yeah, to me, it's just another piece of the puzzle. I look at how, the speech by Haber about how Google works. That showed me a lot, too. It actually showed me where the Raiders come into the picture, which is important, too. Knowing where they do this is important. As knowing what they're doing with it, it's also good to know where in the process it happens.
How do you get a gig as a writer? I seem to recall getting approached like 4 or 5 years ago about it.
They're done by third-party contractors.
A Wikipedia editor or a Demos editor now.
I've seen ads in Craigslist through a company called Lions, and there are other companies for position as human evaluators or raters for Google.
Yeah, there was
Lions.
When they
as long as it's not fiber.
There was an annual report from them that caused some problems where they laid off all these raters, and people thought they were laying off programmers and hit the stock. Just saying.
I would.
All right, well.
I would wonder if they would even want any of us as raters. I would think that they would want more Joe Blow off the street, non-techie types, that non-SEO and developmental type, I would suspect.
I would take even a mix, you know what I mean? Some people that are tech savvy, people that aren't, different demographics. If it was me, I have no idea what they're doing, but I think you'd want to mix different user types.
I think you'd have to know a little bit about the internet. That would make.
Well, in this one particularly, they seem to be looking more for raters that have like some sort of tech background, so they know what they're looking for. Whereas before it was they were just kind of looking for anybody and they trained them. Now they're looking for people who are a little more tech and web savvy to be raters, which I think is great.
Right. They even say something about having some type of technical literacy and ability to actually get around on the web.
Yeah.
One of the things that
so
I want. Sorry. One of the impressions that I got too, looking at this one, I don't know, Jen, be interested in your take on it. I get the impression, the overall. In many areas, they seem to be allowing the raters now a little bit more discretion. They don't seem to be quite as rigid in their direction of how you're going to rate the quality in each regard.
I'm not sure if it's more. I think it's more that they're asking them to do a lot more research on the pages. They're asking them to go and do, check them out on Better Business Bureau or, third-party sites, Yelp, whatever, to see the authoritativeness. They're stressing this authoritativeness, the EAT, so much that they're really wanting the raters to go out there and do that research for the pages before they rate it. So I don't know if it's that they have more flexibility, but that they're asking them to do more research to get a better idea of how good or how not good a particular web page or site is.
What about service? For instance, if on Yelp it said this site gave me all this bad stuff, like bad experience, say restaurant, right? Would they then lower the rankings for that restaurant?
They talk about that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
And they also, one of the things that's important to note, that if the site isn't mobile friendly and it's a mobile task, they automatically have to give it the lowest score. Even if the site is absolutely brilliant and awesome and is the best site in the industry, if it isn't mobile friendly and they can't view the site properly on a mobile device, then they have to give it the lowest score. So that shows how much importance Google is putting on mobile, even if you don't believe mobile's a thing.
And mobile to Google is smartphone, right?
Yeah, mobile devices.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they're talking smartphones at this point. Yeah. All right. Well, let's give this goodbye, everyone. Thanks for dropping in, Jennifer, Doc, Frank,
Thanks for
Bill,
having me.
and of course Jerry.
Enjoyed it.
And oh yes, tomorrow 1 o'clock as usual. We're doing our wrap up of the news and just otherwise harassing the world. So join us again tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern.